You mentioned the word earlier, neuroplasticity. What is it? Why did it matter? And I think from looking at your work previously, you had a bit of an epiphany on this subject matter in your career, where you realized that, you probably like most people don't even think it's a thing. They don't think they think that once you grow up, you're set in your ways. But it sounds like there was an epiphany at some point in your career where you realized the importance and the possibilities that neuroplasticity presented.
Well, we have to start by saying that when I was at medical school and doing my PhD in neuroscience, we did not know about neuroplasticity. So we absolutely thought that when you physically stopped growing, that everything in your brain was set for the rest of your life, that you couldn't change your intelligence, you couldn't learn to manage your emotions differently, that it would be much harder to learn new things. What we know now is that the brain is actively growing and changing till we're about 25. And
fuck, I missed it.
No, you didn't. You didn't miss it. You didn't.
I'm 31. Miss it. I know I look 24, but
you didn't miss it. So from 25 to 65, and I would say even beyond now, if you don't do anything to change your brain, it will tend to plateau. So, if you're in a job where you do the same thing every day and you're pretty good at it, you could stay like that for the rest of your life. And that is fine for some people. If you do things that are intense enough to force your brain to change, then you can basically, learn lots of new things, but also get what we call global benefits in your brain. So let's say you decided to learn a new language. Maybe you'd learn Portuguese or French.
Have you spoken to her? Have you spoken to her?
No.
That just felt it feels like, when someone says something to you and it feels like they've already had a conversation behind your back because it's so on the money. No, I actually have a deal with her this year that I'd learn Portuguese by the end of the year, and we're in September now. And I know 6 words. So that just felt a little bit close to home. So let's move on.
So that's great. So you have actually a reason to learn 1 or 2 languages. If you do that, your brain will not only get the benefits of being able to speak French or Portuguese, but you will actually improve your executive functions. Now, these are the highest functions of the brain. Things like being able to regulate your emotions better, solve complex problems, think flexibly, think creatively, override any conscious or unconscious biases that you may have. These are great benefits to get from actually just doing something like learning a language or a musical instrument. And it can be smaller things like travel, interacting with people who've had a different life to you, cooking something new, taking a different route to work, reading a newspaper or a magazine that's very different to what you normally read.
Doing a podcast?
Well, you do this every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's not inducing neuroplasticity in your brain, although you're learning new
different
things.
People.
Yeah, you're meeting different people, you're learning new things. But it's probably not what we would call attention intense enough to actually be shifting pathways in your brain.
Oh. So having all these conversations isn't like expanding my...
It is in terms of the facts that you're learning.
Yeah.
But your actual process of, finding a person, doing a bit of research into them, meeting them, having a conversation with them, being good at asking them certain questions, that's a very natural pathway for you. So, you're getting better and better at it, but that's not a new big change in your brain.
So okay, right. So I think when people hear about neuroplasticity, when I first heard about that it was even a thing, it was a revelation that we could do things to change our brains. What is it that people typically want from neuroplasticity? They want to be someone else in other ways. They want new habits. They want new ways of thinking. They want to stop being a negative thinker or an overthinker in certain situations. If I wanted to stop being an overthinker or a negative thinker, or if I wanted to, there's certain habits we all have and that I have in my life that I'm like, I just feel like it's me now.
Yeah, like procrastination.
Procrastination shows up sometimes.
I'm just saying that because of not learning.
Who have you spoken to? I'm joking. No, I don't procrastinate too much because I don't really have a choice these days. I procrastinate on some things. I think we all do things that I find.
Yeah, we all do. No, I'm really glad you've taken this into the intangible, because obviously I use the analogy of language as a great one to help people understand that you learn something new, it builds up that pathway in your brain, it shifts your brain around, it has other benefits. But what people are really looking for is changing habits and behaviors that are not serving them in life.
Yeah.
So whether it's...
Lack of motivation.
Yeah, lack of motivation, overthinker, negative thinker, lose your temper, sort of feel very stuck, people pleasing, like so many things.
Mood, reactions, how you react to things.
Yeah. So the process for that, which is underpinned by neuroplasticity, like the physiology of what happens in the brain, is raised awareness. So let's say that you've had a relationship breakup again for the similar reasons and, whatever happened before. So then you get to a point you're like, okay, last time I just kind of didn't really deal with that and just moved on to the next relationship. Now I'm beginning to see there's a pattern. I think I need to do something different.
Step one is spot the pattern.
And step one is 50% of the battle. So, once you know, okay, this is a thing that I think or I believe or I do that comes out with a result that I don't want, that is half the battle. So once you've done that, you don't try to change anything straight away. The next stage is called focused attention. So you look around in your life, at work, in your personal life, in sports, if you play sports, with different types of people and through your past. Where are the times I've done that? What triggers me into doing that, or what pushes me into doing that?
Let me give you an example so we can work through these steps with an example. Got a friend in my life that repeatedly dates people who are married or in a relationship.
Oh.
And it ends how you'd expect it to end, in her heartbreak.
Yeah.
But it's this spiral she's on.
Yeah.
So step one would be becoming aware of this pattern. You're dating people that are in this, for some reason
So in this case, that is obvious. If you're getting into relationships with people who are already attached, you're aware of that. What I would want to dig into with her is what it is that she believes about herself that makes her think that that's okay. And I'm imagining already that there must be a level of self-worth that has struggled, and maybe there's something in her childhood that's caused that. But you would only do that if you didn't believe that you deserved someone of your own. So that's the kind of conversation I would have with someone like that. I would probably ask her, what goes through your mind when you decide to do that again? And she would say something that she's conscious of thinking. I would want to dig below that and ask what it is that she believes about herself that makes her think that. So that's quite an important part of the raised awareness, is getting below the thought into the belief. Next step is, well, certainly if she's got a history of this, is, maybe in journaling, acknowledging, writing down, okay, this time that I went out with someone that was, kind of engaged in a relationship with someone else, or this time I had an affair with a married man. What happened? That decision-making process, the point from which you agreed to get into that, what was the consequence? So really, that's the focused attention, marrying together that decision with the consequence. One of the things I say is you are basically the sum of every decision that you've made in your life. That's who you are. So once there's a bit more understanding and attention around what causes that and how it happens, the next stage is deliberate practice. So the first challenge is going to be the next time she meets a man who's not available. And she may not yet be able to say no to that. She may have to make another mistake, but she'll make it armed with all the knowledge that she's got now, and she'll see it for what it is. Or she will be able to say no to that man this time. So the next step is deliberate practice, which is where you say, okay, I used to behave like this. This is the new me that I want to be, is somebody who says no to every man that's married, who, replaces every negative thought with a positive thought, or whatever it is that you're working on. You then look for scenarios to practice this new behavior. And at first it will be hard because you have a pathway there that may have been set since childhood that is used to doing a certain thing. And the brain, it's a very energy hungry organ. So it's always trying to use the path of least resistance. Let's say I'm an overthinker, okay? And you're asking me these questions and I've got this voice in the back of my head saying, why is Stephen asking me that? What's he trying to get to? Is he trying to trick me? What I would try to do is silence that voice in my head and say, okay, in this podcast with Stephen, I'm going to focus on him. I'm going to take his questions for what they are, and I'm going to speak from my area of expertise. I'm not going to worry about that other stuff that, can go on in my head. And let's say this time I managed to do that 50% of the time. And then I go and do another podcast next week and I manage to do it 75% of the time, and so on. eventually this new pathway that I've been building will become stronger than the one that I had before. And then every time I turn up for a podcast, I'll just be completely present and attentive, and I'll get to the end of it. And that's the new me now.